If someone asks me what is healthcare, I think this is the crux of healthcare, to making people more comfortable, and we have taken the period as the first part of it.
Also a topic which you find very sensitive about. You not talk about it loudly, in a coffee shop, right? Of course, you're the founder, you'll talk about it, but the
Yeah.
others would not, right? Just given the nature of the topic. Why did you choose this particular topic?
Typically, entrepreneur take a bet based on what is happening in the market, which is AI or something else, right? And you'll see or where the fund is flowing. I think setting up looks easy, but it's damn difficult. The upside of venturing into something which out of your comfort zone is so high. You learn so many things. You discover so many things about yourself. Yes, you can think about it. You can talk about it. You can always be proud of, okay, I have tried to do something.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Manufacturing Mindset. You must be thinking, why another podcast? Well, if there is one sector that is the most critical to India's growth story, it is manufacturing. Also, what is required is a change in mindset where the youth is looking to start a new venture as opposed to finding a job. So let me introduce you to our first guest, Mr. Kiriti Acharjee, who is actually redefining the feminine hygiene space in India through his company HealthFab. So Kiriti, welcome to the show. And before we start talking about the company, which we'll do for the rest of the podcast, tell us about yourself. Where did you grow up? What were early years like that eventually shaped you to starting a company?
First of all, thank you, Sarvesh, for having me. To talk about my early days, I was born in Assam, a very small district in Assam called Hailakandi. But I've been grew in various parts of India. Thanks to my dad job, he was in army. So for first 6 years, I grew up in Delhi, Saket, and then for a couple of years we went to Kashmir. And then for the next 4 years, again came back to Assam and did my like 10, 11, 12 part. And then I moved from Assam to southern part for doing my engineering or graduation from Annamala University. I was there for 4 years. And then the professional journey kicked in terms of the job and where we are stationed. So from Annamala University, I got a job in supply chain thing where I was part of a company called Flextronics, if you have heard of. So it's a Foxconn. The biggest one is Foxconn, and after that is Flextronics. So for a couple of years, I was stationed in Pune to understand the entire supply chain piece. From there, after understanding team management, supply chain, and entire financial implication, I moved to Amazon to understand the entire e-commerce. E-commerce back in 2017 was growing up in India with presence of Flipkart and Amazon, right? So I was part of the entire US and Canada marketplace, where I was making sure that the new vendors understand the marketing channels. So Amazon has their different tools of marketing, I would say, like deals, coupons, subscribe and save. So I was part of the entire coupons and subscribe and save marketing funnel. Then how can we make sure that the vendor adopts the marketing channel and it helps the customer to understand and get the best deal out of it, right? In 2019, I called it a quit, and I started my own venture named HealthFab. And then from 2020, we officially launched the product. And from there, also the journey is where we are as of now.
No, fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And it's great to see how you've traversed different parts of the
Yeah.
country and, of course, internationally as well, especially while growing up. And talk to us about that, right? Where in the early years, as you were growing up and you moved across cities, was it
Yeah.
particular in that experience that you think helped you as moved out from Amazon and wanted to start a new venture?
Yeah, I think somewhere if I see and connect the dots, I think being from an army family, right? So it always gives you some different kind of challenge, whether it is the terrain or the place or the food or how do you gel up. And obviously, I think the passion for the duty for my father is much more higher than the fear of losing anything, right? So I think that has imbibed me as a culture is that if you are really passionate about something, you can still do it. You can still learn from the scratch and do the things on your own. And I think communication and gelling up with different kind of culture helped me in early days, and then that stayed with the engineering or the job, I would say, and the international exposure and talking to people. I think the one thing is that if you talk to people, you try to solve and you try to understand their mentalities, you get to learn so much about the place, about the finance, about the culture there, and then it can help you to understand, unlocks different relationship in the business culture also, that okay, I need to get that done, right? And I think the jugaad technology of India is so high that you can do and do that in any way short span of time. But I think yes, the bigger part is that the army culture helps you to be prepared for different things in life which is throwing up.
Very interesting. Like there's so many aspects you've actually mentioned. One is, of course, the discipline that comes with
Yeah,
army, right?
yeah,
You talked about curiosity and getting to know about people,
yeah,
connecting with people, right? Which is
yeah,
perhaps most important things for you as a CEO as well.
yeah,
And of course, the famous Indian Jugaad as well. Uh,
yeah,
about running a company. So very interesting learnings over there. And tell me something, right? You mentioned about Amazon and other experiences, and these were very large sort of setups, MNCs, right?
yeah,
How do you
yeah.
think that experience sort of shaped you? What were the key
I
learnings?
th- yeah, I think Amazon is one of the best experience, I would say, because they have some set of rules, a set of policies or culture, like think big, right? Amazon always feels that they are still a startup. It's still day one, not day zero, right? Then deliver result. Typically, if you go to any MNCs, they prefer PowerPoint, versus if you go to Amazon, you have to write a 5 page, 6 page document, because it helps you to discover the challenges, because you can hide a lot of things in the PowerPoint but which you can't do in writing, I think. So there are small things which you get understand, and try to understand why they are doing it, and then making sure that you can help. And those culture, right? Like in our team, we don't try to do the PowerPoint, we try to write it down as much as we can. If not 6 pages, at least 2 pages, 3 pages. We don't want to do unnecessary 6 pages, but we try to write it down in a way that we understand the problem statement, right? So and then we try to solve on the problem statement. So and then obviously think big, because if in a startup, if you're not thinking big, you are not making it bigger for yourself, for the shareholders, for the customer, for the employees. Deliver is something that we have to make sure that you're delivering result, and that is the only way you can keep your company float. Right, be frugal, be lean. These are the things, I think, for a big companies. I was shocked too that they are also working on being frugal, have the backbone and disagree and commit. I think these are the things you do, every startup does in day-to-day life, but they don't write it down in something. But eventually, like if you think back and understand, okay, delivery is something important, being frugal is so important, thinking big is so important, right? Bias for action is so important, that if you just talk and don't do that nothing, it won't take you anything. So I think those things help me to put a put a roadmap. Okay, this is how I want to work, or this is how my team should work, right? And then but obviously the best, and then you say, okay, this is a startup, this is not a big MNC, so leave your team, let them work. You can tell them what you want, but how they should do it is upon them, right? So
Of course, yeah. And I think what you're referring to is also, I think, partly the leadership principle
principles, yeah,
uh,
yeah,
about, right? I think very interesting concepts you refer to. I mean, especially for me, what stood out was the startup mentality. Uh,
yeah.
Even though they're a large company, and as an investor, I keep having these debates about what is a startup and what is a large company. But
Mm.
the fact is that it's actually the mentality as opposed to the
Yes,
size of the company.
yes, yes,
Whether you're a
yeah,
startup or a large
yeah,
company. And it's not necessarily a large company is good if your mentality is like that, right?
correct, yeah.
So very, very interesting. And the other bit is also concise communication. And I think that is something, of course, especially in corporates, I think, people get to learn,
Yeah,
which I think is very, very helpful, right? And I've
yeah,
been in an investment firm where for us, again, it was very important that we were very concise in our communication
mm,
to our internal team members as well,
mm,
take a decision.
yeah.
Very interesting. Let's now talk about HealthFab and what you're building here. So, what is your elevator pitch? When you talk to investors.
Yeah, I think for us it's very simple. Is that for any woman, they don't have to use pad 10% menstrual cup, and they can be as comfortable as their normal days when they're in period days. So we are eliminating the use of disposable pads in one go. And we are saying that women will be at most comfortable, right? So if someone asks me what is healthcare, I think this is the crux of healthcare, so making people more comfortable. And we have taken the period as the first part of it, where in India there are 60 crore women by and large are there, and almost 40 crore women every month go through periods, right? Depending upon their buying capacity. Some are using commercially built, some are not using commercially built, but every woman seeks a comfortable period. That's the crux of it, right? So whether you are sitting in a couch or whether you're sitting and working somewhere else, but every woman needs those 4 5 days in a month as to be more comfortable than any other days. So we want to make those 5 days every month for every woman out there, not only in India, as a global root cause or whatever the problem state. We want those to be more comfortable. That's the elevator pitch we believe.
Very interesting. And of course, there is a manufacturing layer at the back
Yeah,
end.
yeah.
Us about the ecosystem for the textile manufacturing industry in India right now. You of course had an outsourced production that you've now moved in sort of in-house. What are some of the positive aspects? Let's start with that of the textile manufacturing ecosystem in India right now.
So I think India has the second largest manufacturing setup in entire world. If you see in terms of the impact, textile industry employs almost 45 million people in India, contributes to almost 2.3% of the GDP, growing at a staggering rate of 8 to 10% year on year. Will be around $200 billion market, would say, considering there are a lot of, obviously they are layered to it, but as a nutshell, textile industry is like second biggest industry, right? And it's growing at a good speed. And now what is happening with nearby countries to their political things? So I think it will help India to be the number one very soon, because India has the best skilled labor, I would say. And textile is something which we have mastered in terms of where we are right now. So if someone is looking to start a textile, I think the caveat here, what I've understood is it's mostly a family owned businesses which are there for last 60, 70, 80 years. There is no new age company who is coming and working for build a large scale textile manufacturing. I think because there is already relationship built with brand and the manufacturer, and building that and coming to and building that thing is a difficult part. But I think textile is something which people have built over 60, 70 years, a profitable business. And then they are surviving, they are making sure and then they're employing a lot of people out there. So you go to Tirupur, you'll see a bigger industry, like every street is a vendor to the entire industry. You go to Ludhiana, you go to Surat, right? And I think what I understand is see that lot of automation will come to the textile industry, where basically the floor automation, what people says, right, that currently it is 10 people are doing. How can we make it cheaper, or how can you make it faster? I think lot of companies, lot of schools, a lot of colleges are working to make sure there's a floor automation happening, right? So that if a person can do this much, can the automation help him to do 10x 5x, which didn't happen in the textile. If you see, the automobile industry is purely into the entire automation, and thing happened and the entire revolution happened. But textile, because India was always a cheap labor kind of thing, or labor is easily available, that's why that automation never happened. But due to lot of tectonic change, that people are going to the gig working, people are finding the job easier in the delivery partners. So lot of skilled laborers are not coming to textile. So I believe next 5 to 10 years will happen where a lot of automation companies will come and do the floor automation for the people, because eventually the company need to thrive and grow and do the faster deliveries of the product.
Got it. So in terms of the key takeaways, one, of course, given just the contribution to employment, to GDP,
Yes.
and of course, a lot of it is export. So there's a lot
Yes.
of
Yeah, 60 70% is export. Now the trend is changing. People are focusing on the national deliveries also. But still, I think by and large, 65%, whatever I have spoken to a bigger industries or the manufacturer, that if the export is not happening, face a heat of it, and the entire P&L goes for a toss. But and that's why they're focusing more on the entire consumption in India also.
yeah. But a big sector for the government and the ecosystem players to
Yeah,
also focus on,
yeah, yeah.
right? Because there is that supply of talent that's there. So the ecosystem is there. It's just that you have to develop it further through
Yeah,
automation.
yeah. I think also because your ecosystem is so such centralizedly located, right? So there isn't enough competition for brand and say, okay, I want to make this product. So you will find 10 different people who will say, okay, I can make the product for you, right? So I think that is going to happen a lot. And as India consumption happens over longer period of time for the textile and the demand increases, and there is a rapid shift of fashion happening, so you will need to have those kind of optimization in the industry which can help support the ever changing demand need for the people, right? So earlier in 80s the demand, the fashion was not changing very fast, right? But now every year there's a new fashion is kicking in. So how do we cope up with the entire fashion, because still people are importing from China a lot of stuff, a lot of R&D is happening in back in China and Vietnam, and Vietnam has a again cheaper level than India, so they want to thrive on that. So I think we need to focus on the quality of the work, and Bangladesh is not importing or exporting so much after like lately 2024. So how can we leverage on that demand spike?
And tell me, what is the gap that one needs to solve for?
Mhm.
Because there are some people who will say that there is not enough of an ecosystem, right? So you've been in the industry now for a few years. What are the gaps that you are seeing at a ecosystem level, right? That you think one should solve for?
I think manufacturing is a hard-earned industry where every penny counts, right? And every manufacturer is looking for a profit versus the long-term game. I think the manufacturer need to be cognizant of the fact that because the industry is changing so fast, they need to also be aware what is changing, how the demand is shaping up, what they can adopt so that they can serve the brand owners or the retailers of the piece, right? Because and with the same box with the same price point. So I think it's a backward integration that manufacturer need to put in, that because the demand is changing, you can't stay with one piece. And then if and suppose if a smaller band wants 100 pieces and a bigger band wants a lakh pieces, right? So they should be able to serve both end of the customer. And I think that is missing because every manufacturer is trying to just serve the top layer of the customer, but there are a lot of demand happening, and there's small startups happening every town where people are trying to gauge the new fashion. So can a manufacturer still serve for the smaller brand owners at a very affordable price point? I think that is not happening, and that's why people are going to Alibaba and China and buying, and then they feel okay that they can do it. But after a point of time, then they also see a spike. They don't see any cost effectiveness, right? So I think India have lot of opportunities in terms of where they are, but they don't have anyone holding their hands in terms of the design capabilities,
So you're saying the number one point is there are a lot of new brands that are coming up.
and it will still come up.
It's
Yeah.
the sort of demand, right? And how do you cater to them? You have to be flexible in terms of the quantity, pricing, etc.
Yes. Yes.
Players, as they grow, they will also grow with you, but
Yes.
be flexible at the beginning. You can't have minimum MOQ requirements and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think because the thing is that suppose someone is sitting in Calcutta or someone sitting in Madhya Pradesh, they can't come to Tirupur and sit for 1 month and find the right vendor, right? So I think what Alibaba did is that it has make sure that you can buy from the tap of a button, right? But we have the ecosystem back in Tirupur, we have ecosystem back in Surat, right? So whatever there is a ploy where there is a app, you just put a product, and then 10 different manufacturer can put bid for it, right? And I think those things will you'll see, I think someone will be solving for that.
So I think discovery also is still an issue in
Yeah, I think this is a big issue because
that have
yeah,
come. That is still an issue.
because typically those people who are manufacturer don't get into the digital platform, right? So they put a team to do it. They don't know what is happening in the digital or discovery thing. They are not doing the sales on Amazon or the Myntra, right? But they must be making the great products, right? So and then they squeeze out their entire profit margin into that. So until manufacturer also wants to be a brand owner or the seller, right? I think they won't be bigger output of it, which is coming up.
Got it. Interesting. And you mentioned that, of course, setting up a manufacturing unit is not easy, and everyone sort of knows that, right? And you've
Yeah.
gone through the pain yourself, and now
Yeah.
Scaling.
Yeah.
Tell us about three big learnings that you've had in both the setting up phase as well as sort of, now as you're operating it.
I think setting up looks easy, but it's damn difficult because first of all, this entire industry is run by family thing, and everyone is doing it. So because here the talent is so limited, right? You that can you the first of all you get the machines. You someone can get you the entire machine list, and you can just go and buy it. But I think if the machine breaks down, whom will I call? Right. So you as a small vendor or at a less scale, I need to put someone who will be there just to make sure that if there is a breakdown, they can support us. The second part is that getting the people or the skilled laborers to stay with you, right? Because the thing is that the report is an ecosystem where if I don't have work as a labor, and today factory A don't have a work, I can go to factory B or factory C, right? But I'm in Bangalore where I don't have any ecosystem,
Hmm.
right? And for them to come from Tirupur to Bangalore, leaving everything, and if I don't give them a work after 1 month, they have to shift their base again, right? So and that's why building a manufacturing where you keep the same talent for year and year, because that's how you only build the quality. If your talent is going every week, you cannot make sure that you're getting the quality, right? So and you are not in a part of ecosystem, right? If I had to set up in Tirupur, I would have been much more easier because they will come and they will stay, and if I don't have work but here the thing is that because I don't have any fallback option, I have to make sure that whoever I'm getting, I have to pay them, and I have to make sure that if I'm taking a switch, I should be better at doing it faster at a very lean model, and then I can build a small team of 10 people and then add upon it. So I think the three learning is that the most important is getting the right first set of people, 5 7 people who will stay with you, who trust you, and and you also trust them back. That's one. That's getting first 7 people is very big challenge. Secondly, what if you had a breakdown of machines? So building the ecosystem in new place is very difficult, right? So what when we started, we hired someone for 3 months as a consultant who handhold and made people learn about what is different scenarios of breakdown, and then in 3 to 4 months we at least cover 60% of the breakdown issues and all, right? So that challenge we have taken, that we have said, okay, 3 months we'll hire someone at a 2x price of Tirupur, make sure that he stays in Bangalore. We put up the entire ecosystem plan here. And the third is the most important piece is that, okay, how can you make sure the definition of quality is so naive to the entire ecosystem out there, right? Because our product is all about quality, all about understanding feel, right? Versus how do you make sure that balance of quality versus output, because you are paying them on per piece basis versus my, but you have to also make sure that your quality is important, so you don't miss out on the quality versus the output. So that's why if you have the right set of people, first 7 people, you have the entire ecosystem, that if it is breakdown, there's a people out there, and then you build upon those 5 7 people to make sure there's a quality. You can build upon that.
So one is the ecosystem part, right? Which you're saying, of course, is there in Tirupur, but not
Yeah,
really
in
meant
Bangalore.
to
Yeah.
sort of. And of course, I think the government has also talked about building clusters across
Yes.
regions
Yes.
now, because you do need that, right? Given the volumes that we are talking about.
Yeah.
And the other is, of course, the talent bit, right? Which
Yeah, yeah, you don't get that same kind of talent belt, because in Tirupur everyone is so talented that you can put anyone into anyone's replacement. But here, if I my main person is not there to find the same level of talent, because
yeah.
I don't have any outsourced ecosystem, right? So then I have to again dependent on a lot of people. But eventually, if you have a backup plan, okay, you'll start training up a set of 10 20 people who are not part of that, and take a longer view of 6 months 8 months one, because after 2 to 3 years this smaller issues will not matter, right? But the first, I think you have to be ready for those first 2 years of issues that will come up for sure.
So it's basically also how do you provide support to new startups that are coming
Yes,
to the
yes,
space
yes,
in the initial phase where they're operationalizing, uh,
yeah,
want to handhold, during that period.
yeah, yeah. And I think also for a founder, if they're listening, or also for an operator who was part of the ecosystem, and if they want to set up something very new in a new place, writing down what are the problems can come, and be extensive in their writing, right? These are the problems. The more better you write, and may try to cover up the scenarios, I think you will be in a much better position to cover those issues, right? If you feel okay, I just put person and the machine and things will work out, it will never work out, because there are so many moving parts to it: the person, the ecosystem, the norms, the nomenclature, PF, if someone is coming, someone, because you don't know how they behave, right? So there's a language issue. Then how do you talk to them? I think you need to sit with them, because eventually they're human beings. So being humble to them, and okay, saying, if it doesn't work out, I make sure that you'll get the payment first, right? So these are things should be a part of the entire list.
Got it. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about the broader space also that you're working on, which is the feminine hygiene space, right?
Yeah,
Now, this is a space that you will see has much not gotten as much attention, right? Like some of the
yeah,
other spaces. It's also a topic which you find very sensitive about. You not talk about it loudly, in a coffee shop, right? Of course, you're the founder, you'll talk about it, but the
yeah,
others would not, right? Just given the nature of the topic. And there was some awareness created when Padman, the movie came in, but it seems like again, it's not a topic that people sort of talk about, right? But yet there's a lot more that needs to be done. Now,
correct.
you were thinking about different ventures when moving out of Amazon. You could have done many different things. Why did you choose this particular topic, especially as a male founder?
No, I think we didn't choose the topic. We choose the problem statement first. I think one is, so they what we understand is people want to look good, people want to smell good, people want to eat good. I think, but there's another category, people want to be comfortable, right? I think which is the crux of it. What we understood is that if we can give them a good product, exponential delivery way of comfort, I think we can make a brand here. I understand that you are saying people are not coming to this category, which has a lot of due to how VC see the world, or the fund managers see the world, because typically building a large scale business here takes its own time, which is not a thesis of a 7 year, 5 year VC funding thing, right? So you don't get to see the result in 5 years, 7 years down the line, and that's why a lot of entrepreneurs don't see a bet, because typically entrepreneurs take a bet based on what is happening in the market, which is AI or something else, right? And you'll see, or where the fund is flowing, right? So because we were first time founders, we don't know jack shit about what is happening in the funding game. We wanted to solve a real problem and say, okay, this is what we want to solve. And it might take 10 years down the line. But after Whisper, there is no brand. Or after Whisper, Stay Free, which 80% of the market, if we really build a brand for 10, 15 years, then we can build upon it. And this is a problem statement can which go to Africa also, which go to Russia also, and the same problem happening. It is not only with India that this category is not moving. This category is not moving across the globe, right? So only there, yes, obviously there are some brand who have made big in US in this new category, but we wanted to solve for the problem statement, and we knew that if we can stick around for next 10, 15 years, I think the dividends are very high for the consumer and also for the shareholders.
No, very true. And I think what you outlined was a very interesting way of starting a venture where, on one hand, there are some founders who think about, Acha, where is the funding going?
Yeah,
And let me start playing in that sector, which of course has its own merits. But then you run into a lot of other issues. Whereas you came very bottoms up, saying that, okay, there is this problem that exists today, and how do I solve for that? And if I solve for that, of course, there's a large market and things will follow, right? Both demand will follow, and then there is investor
yes,
interest also
yes, yeah,
follow. But the other aspect of it, which you also mentioned, was almost like this is a category creation play, right?
correct.
There is a upper half in some sense, if you want to call it, for who affordability of this product is not an issue,
Yeah,
but behavior change that you're talking about. Whereas for the bottom half, they are actually behavior change is not as much of an issue, but
it's affordable.
affordability is something that one will take some time to sort of get there. And as a result, some of these plays you either require a lot of money to spend or time or both or either of those, right? And as a result, what happens is entrepreneurs stay away from category creation plays.
Correct.
Talk about what learnings you've had in building this category thus far that sort of people can learn from, especially on the marketing, the awareness side of it.
I think we started with a very blank understanding of the entire category. Is that the only notion we had is that people are not happy with the pads. That's the bottom line. And then how do we solve it? So when we were starting, we were seeing a lot of brands pushing for menstrual cup, which eventually didn't took off in India for various reasons, right? And then we understood that people love cotton as the product. People, women or men using underwear of the cotton, right? So we wanted, and then when they are using pad, they have to switch the position when they are sleeping and all, right? So they cannot do freely the yoga. So we said, okay, we'll make a product, um, and do a beta testing at a very premium price point, and then see if people are happy with the product, right? So when we launched at a price point of 1150 per piece, which you are saying that okay, there are people who are not changing the behavior, but they can afford it, right? So we said, okay, let's make it affordable for the premium people, and then see whether they are changing the behavior. If they will change the behavior, I think the pyramid, it will be easier for us to change the behavior at a lower end, right? So and then we said, okay, we'll take a bootstrap for a couple of years and see if this working, if and then we just told them, and we never played on sustainability and anything else. We just focus on comfortable days, go pad free, the word is go pad free, the comfortable product and all. So we played for 2 years. We see a growth, we see Taiwan people adopting, um putting in money of 1150 for a panty which is can be used only for 3 days a month. It's a big leap of faith for any woman out there, right? And especially when you are saying that you don't have to wear a pad, which is again a question that will it leak, how will it work? uh, and obviously then we started getting reviews rating, with an NPS score of 88%, 90%, people are coming and saying good product and all. And then I think we understood if we want to make this category very, very big, we need to have a bigger gross margin. We need to make it more affordable at a price point where people don't feel like they are buying something extra. They are buying the normal panties at a price point. And I think it's a journey where we are. So, and currently we are selling at a price point of 499, pack of 399, 999, right? When versus when we started, we were selling at a pack of 1150. And in 4 years, our gross margin has moved from 60 to 73, 75%, right? So I think we were very sure of the fact that we want to make in India. We want to make sure that we want to make it for the people of India. And then if we can solve it, and I think we are proud to say that we are the brand in the entire globe who are making the product at a cheaper rate than China, right? With the backbone of textile industry in India, the cotton and everything. And I think there's still a room for it, which we want to leverage the entire automation piece. We want to make sure that if people are buying a normal underwear pack of three, we want to be placed under that. And I think that is the point where we feel that um, people disposable income is also increasing, and we are also coming down. We'll meet somewhere which will be affordable for everyone. And if you really build the right product, I think people will come and buy for you. So right product, right messaging, and then right delivery of the promises. I think these are the things which we always focus on.
So it's very good summarized at the end is you have the right product, you have the right messaging and you have the right delivery. If you solve for it,
Yes.
then even if it's a new product requires behavior change,
Yeah.
you will adopt. And as you are adopting, your prices are actually going down, which is driving the adoption, but yet your margins are going up because your volumes are increasing.
Yeah.
Right. And then with more automation and things like that, of course, there's scope for more over there. Very interesting. Let's talk about the sourcing bit, right? Of course, there is a material, and you talked about comparison of the pricing with China, and you made it cheaper in China. There is a product that we source, which earlier we used to source from China. We are sort of moving it to India.
Yeah.
And we are speaking about the ecosystem here as well. What is the difference that you are noticing, especially in textiles, right? The ecosystem there in China and the ecosystem here in India. And how do we be more self-sufficient, right? Like, for example, there's this product that you used to import, and now
Yeah.
you in-house. I'm sure there must be other players as well who would be importing from China some components. How do we
Yeah.
be self-sufficient?
I think I've seen the Chinese counterpart. So they keep on as a manufacturer, they keep on putting a lot of effort into their R&D. So which makes sure that their customers don't have to put a lot of effort on the R&D. They just have to put a lot of effort on the marketing piece, right? So versus in India, the R&D piece is not a part of the entire DNA system, right? So it is just order, profit, order, profit, order, profit, right? I think the DNA need to be changed and revamped fully, where um, China has a team of people who do a lot of R&Ds. They try to go to Amazon of the world, read the comment, understand, and they okay say this is a problem with our current product. Let's do, and before even customer comes and asks them, they start building upon that. Right, so and then they do a lot of R&Ds, and then say okay, this is a lighter version of what we sold, but better version, durable version, right? So what a customer want is that you are always on. They go with the pamphlet or the leaflet and say, oh, "This is the R&D we had. This is something coming up next 6 months, right?" But so you don't find that kind of attitude in the current manufacturing setup, right? Is that they just we are still in the days of credit terms, and all this thing, the payment, right? So versus in Chinese and counterparts, the textile, they are mixing lot of fabric, producing different kind of fabrics and all this thing, right? So and then that's why they are way ahead of the entire curve, because we are a brand which is always focused on building product for India, building better products for India, better margin. So I think R&D is a very big part for us, and that's why we play it at a very front foot, and then okay say okay, this is what we need to build. So the one of the product which is still we were importing from China. We started this work 1 year back, where we thought okay, this is the only product, 17% of our entire cox which is coming from China, and then we need to solve it, right? So we wanted to solve it just for the supply chain thing, not the cost benefit, because we don't want to dependent on someone. We wanted to have a multiple supply chain that we can buy from here also, there also, right? So we never thought of it will benefit the cost. Benefiting the cost is the second part which we discovered. So we thought okay, where we can go that. So we searched some internet, there was some small shop, and then we asked them, can you make it for us? They said okay, no, I cannot make it because I'm not making it. Can you give us the formula? And then we given them the formula. We were sitting with them, um, and making sure that this is, and it always took almost 1 year to develop where we are, right? And now we are fully ready to incorporate in next financial year of that. By the virtue of it, what happened is that you'll see the period panties as the category will be much more independent of the Chinese counterpart, right? It's because once you make all the ecosystem in India, right, you'll see a lot of players coming, trying to do better at a scale, because India is not into R&D piece, but at a scaling thing, India is great, right? You can scale it very faster versus the. So if you really solve one of the pieces and make a good product out there, those product can be used in different applications also, not only specific to period panties. The microfiber as an entire component is situated in China, right? There we are still importing, but the fun fact is that India makes a lot of polyester, which is the base of microfiber, but we are not making it, right? I think it's just a way you look at the problem statement, a part of innovation, and if you really do innovation, you unlock a different industry out there.
Very interesting. I think what you're talking about is basically that while manufacturing is happening in India,
Yeah,
I think we're not innovating enough. And that
yeah,
when I think about it, like the next leg of growth that has to come, it can't be a copy paste of everything that you're doing and just setting up capacity, but a
yeah,
lot about how do you improve, how do you do R&D,
yeah,
right? Sort of take it forward. And I think which is what you guys are trying to do.
yeah,
Now that we've spoken a little bit about the manufacturing, the ecosystem, etc., as I said, the other aspect of our podcast is going to be about mindset, right? And helping sort of individual learn from entrepreneurs like you, right? On how you build that mindset to become an entrepreneur. One of the things that stops people, and probably that stops people from even innovating, right? Because there is this fear of failure. Like you mentioned about R&D, right? Like what if I do that R&D and it doesn't happen, right? And probably that's the reason many people don't do it, including sort of investors, right? You like copy paste models, sketch, you've invested, you made money, and then you sort of do it, repeat again, right? As opposed to trying something new. Talk about, like, you worked in a few jobs. This fear of failure is a very popular concept that prevents people from getting into entrepreneurship. How does one sort of solve for that, or at least what was your thinking about it?
I think we still with everyone we have the fear of failure, right? But while I'm speaking, I'll still have the fear of failure that we don't know what happens after 6 months, 1 year down the right. But And it's good to have the fear of failure because you're always in the toes to deliver the best result of you. Fear of failure should help you to do and take a better action, should not limit you to don't do took any action, right? I think this is how I look at that. When I was venturing out, my only question is that I might give 6 7 8 years, right? I might not end up anywhere, but what is the downfall of it? I learn so much, I again go to better job of it, right? I can go to any FMCG companies, I go to any quick commerce companies. Okay, say I have learned so much. Do you have anything for me? And that's the only thing I've learned about, right? But now, but the upside of venturing into something which out of your comfort zone is so high. You learn so many things. You discover so many things about yourself that this, yes, you can think about it. You can talk about it. You can always be proud of, okay, I have tried to do something. I think entrepreneurship is all about, can you fix something at a least cost, at the best, at the least of resources, and trying to do deliver products at a high cost or a high kind of quality, right? So I think if you leave your fear of failure as part of your entire life and say, okay, even if I fail, I'll come back and be a better version of myself. I think that is the only thing you have to figure out. Can you adopt to a fear of failure and say, okay, I will not fail because I will do it, take a action which is going to be the best version of myself. But if I fail, I will be a better version of myself and I will still try to do. So I think we have seen a lot of examples in our life where their first venture, second venture has failed. But when they come back with a bang and they make it so big, right? So I think, so everyone has a fear of failure, like every athlete, every politician, every entrepreneurs, right? So entrepreneurs face it every month, cash flow and everything. But eventually, if you have a bigger picture and you say, okay, there will be failures out of 100 company, 99 fails, but I am striving for that one. Or even if I fail, I can still go and have a second attempt, right? So we have examples where people have built Nike at the age of 50, 55, right? So I think there are the reciprocation of failure at 55 is much higher. You don't have a fallback option, right? So
No, of course, Miss Falguni Nair is a powerhouse, and I've had the
yes.
good fortune of meeting with her, and will always remember and cherish that meeting. What you said was also very interesting. With respect to having it, like it's always there, right? Like, and I remember Tony Robbins had said one time that every time he goes, on one of his events, and there are thousands of those people, right? And you would imagine someone like him, he's as powerful as it gets when running an event, and he like every time before I do go for an event, my throat does dry up, right? Like he's worried about how it will go. But then
Yeah.
of course he does a bunch of things, including jumping and all the other things which he describes better, to sort of compose himself, and then goes out there and of course does a fantastic job, right? But what you said struck to me was this action point, right? Bias for action, which of course, like you mentioned with Amazon as well, is that ultimately you have to act and you have to redefine what even failure means.
Yeah.
The venture might not work, but that is not a failure. It's just that the
Yeah.
venture did not work, right? So, okay, let me figure out something else. Probably I'll start second venture. And
Yeah.
even that might not work, but that is okay because I've gained so many skills and I've made so much network that, of course, it'll
Yeah.
be valuable to someone
Yeah.
who will end up hiring me. So I'll still end up being in a decent place. So
Yeah.
defining, what failure is, right? And just getting out of comfort zone, getting into action. Very, very interesting learnings over there. Tell me, the other critical aspect of starting up is also getting a co-founder, right? Talk to us about how that sort of played out for you. You, of course, have two co-founders, who've sort of joined you either from the start or, during that period. What were the early years like as you guys started knowing each other and, then starting it, and then the early years where you're figuring out how to work with each other?
Yeah, I think for me, I think having a co-founder is a very critical part of it because entrepreneurship is a long journey. You see a lot of ups and downs. So I think for me, the playbook is that, can you be more happy with the person when the things are not going well, and like, can you me each other make sure that we are putting the trust of and saying that, hey, we'll put it out and we'll figure it out, and right. So that's number one. Secondly, having the complementary skills set, right? So that I am good at something, they are good at something, and we are coming and saying, okay, we are covering out of 10 skill set needed, we are covering 6 or 7 skill set needed to build a good company, because there are three skill set might, we can hire someone, we can have a mentor out of it. But having a good co-founders, because in a startup, 24 hours you are thinking about the startup, right? So, and you might think very absurd things, you might think very intellectual thing, your company might do good, might not do good, right? But if you have a right set of co-founders with right set of framework and right set of understanding that, okay, this is what, this is not my strength, this is their strength, and we love to hang out with each other, right? I think that that's where the entire thing boils up for, and this is how we gelled upon and say, okay. And obviously the most important piece is the what we are trying to solve. The way of solving might be different. I might want to solve the product in this way, someone want to solve it in a different way, but are you aligning that this is we need to solve? Because if you are aligning, I think most of the problem statements are done, and then it's all about what is the best way of doing it.
So you're saying one, of course, is the trust, which is
Yeah.
important. Second is complementary skill set. And the third is that at the end of the day, the goal is the same.
Yeah.
Could be different, but if you're reaching there and everyone has the same objective,
Yeah.
then it doesn't matter which way you approach it, whether Kirit
Correct.
or someone else is right.
Yeah.
Ultimately, one of us has to be right to get to the goal.
Yes. Yeah.
Very interesting. No, and I think this is something that I completely agree with. And as I'm in the process of setting up a fund, I have two co-founders as well. And for me, one, it was very clear that I wanted to do it with someone who I could trust, have the same value system as I have, right? So that even when I'm sleeping or I'm not there, they are there, right? And I
Yeah.
don't have to worry about, anything. Secondly, like you said, complementary skill sets. And I think and we speak about it within each other as well, that I think all three of us bring, complementary skill set. And of course, like all of us are tied to the idea that, we have to build an institution that lasts beyond the three of us, and, we can deliver sustainable results to our LPs, uh, across funds, right? So that's the common goal for us, of course. No, thank you for sharing that, and clearly resonates with me as well. Tell me the other bit about being an investor, being an entrepreneur is investor interaction, right?
I think I think this is a question which we try to answer very honestly among the co-founders also, right? That what is something worked, what it didn't something worked. I think we try to show the right picture of what we are thinking. Those the most important is that we don't change our narration based on the size of a VC, right? So whether it's a big VC or smaller VC, because eventually, so if someone is putting 100 crore or someone is putting 10 crore, depending upon their appetite, it's still the same for a VC, right? So I cannot take a money showing some random ideas that I will do this for the growth and this further growth. So we always try to show this is my capability, this is the market will move like this is how I will execute, and this might happen in after 7 8 years, right? So and this is what we are building it. So I have spoken to a lot of people, small big VCs, right? Whether they invested or not, depending on theses where you are in the journey. I think what feedback I have received is that they would love to be part of the journey if given next time, depending on our trajectory. And I think we want to keep that line very silver, is that we will show what we are, and what we want to achieve with a clear definition. We will never change what the definition of a company depending on how big someone can write the check. So that's where we are.
This is very unique. And like I was saying, I think in that aspect, I find your thinking very different from, let's say, at least some founders, where a lot of it is investor interest driven, where
Yeah.
what you're saying is that is actually secondary. It's a consequence of what you're doing, and
Yeah.
it shouldn't be driving, what you're doing. So very interesting, and kudos to you in sort of, thinking that way, because it's, I would say, more original thinking. Not everyone sort of thinks like that, right? But of course, that is what takes you,
Yeah. A
uh,
longer path, longer journey, right? So
exactly, exactly. Tell me, as we look to wrap up the discussion, a couple of last questions. As you look at your long-term vision for the company and for the sector, what is that?
we want to build a global brand out of India. and the fem hygiene. We always believe that we are currently very new to the entire journey. We want to build a team which can take it to the global level and make it at a global brand, because the problem statement remains same across the different demographics and geographics piece. So we want to make it a global brand, but the supply chain will be from India, right? From the India for the world, we want to make it.
Super. And final question now, which is as a leader, how do you upskill yourself? There's a lot of talk about upskilling now in the country, especially as we're looking about how do we improve our productivity, right? As CEOs, of course, have to upskill themselves as well. What would be your recommendation basis your experience on upskilling?
I think there are a lot of content out there. That's number one. There are a lot of good content which get hardly seen, right? Because those are much flat.
Want to highlight, which you find at least helpful?
Uh, so I typically see those Nikhil Kamath videos and Zeroda ones. I think they try to cover in very length, right? What is this and what is the action about? So I think content is one. Second is you can always talk to your fellow co-founders or the same demographics, same industry co-founders who are in the same scale or different scale, right? I think if you have right set of investor, they can also introduce to different kind of co-founders whom you can even talk about half an hour and understand, right, how they're thinking, and that will really help you to upscale in terms of the journey, because there's something which you are doing for first time, but they might have done already. They might have gone to the entire scale, right? Where to put the money, how to hire great people, how to talk to the customer or the investor. I think the connection always helps, and obviously, and then there are a lot of other platform you can go and search around, talk to them and understand the things.
And tell me on the, I want to just double click on the co-founder ecosystem bit. Of course, in the startup ecosystem, we've seen that it's a good ecosystem now where founders are helping out each other. How
Yeah,
have you seen it play out in the manufacturing context? Is there enough of an ecosystem where people are helping out each other?
yeah. I
Of
think in
size
in
of, right?
yeah in India there is no manufacturing co-founder podium, I would say, right? So because most of the D2C brands are making from somewhere, and then more of a marketing, versus we are more of a factory to customer brand. The concept of factory to customer brand is evolving in India. So I think obviously if there is a podium, there is a group of manufacturing co-founders, be it any level, it will always help, right? So because for us, we are not only managing the marketing, we are also managing the entire supply chain. So it's an additional layer for us, right? So obviously, in India, there is no marketing co-founder piece, but I think as we grow, people will come and talk about it also.
Yeah, no, this I think for me at least has been one big learning as you've
Yeah,
described the system around manufacturing is support for founders, right? Be it in terms of operational support, be it in terms of learning support,
yeah,
etc. How do you build that for more manufacturing companies? So at least I'm taking that as a key
yeah,
tip. Apart from everything else that we've sort of spoken about today, of course we've covered a lot of ground about the ecosystem, about the company, about you as an
yeah,
individual and everything else. And thank you, Kiriti, for sharing that.
yeah.
Been chatting, of course, for some time, but I learned things today which I didn't know otherwise, and I'm so glad, to be partnering with you in this journey. Look forward to seeing what HealthFab can achieve over the next few years. All the best to you and the team, and
Thank
thank
you, sir. Thank you. Thanks for having me.